Welcome to the next episode of the NoGooRoos Mastermind Group. I'm Tony Whatley, a entrepreneur, speaker, and executive coach, and I've got here some of my friends are going to introduce themselves.
I'm Jeremy Ryan Slate. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Command Your Brand. We are a new media PR agency. I've also had a podcast for about 10 years, talk about politics and culture, and more recently, I talk about the Roman Empire.
I'm Roger Wakefield. I'm a YouTuber. I know it's funny, but I've been plumbing for 44 years. Started doing social media 6 years ago. Now social media on every platform is what I do, grow, and teach. I'm a speaker, an entrepreneur, and man, I love changing the world.
My name is Mike Fallat. I own Dream Starters Publishing. When I'm not watching 80s movies or riding dirt bikes, I'm helping people write books and then show them how to use it as a marketing tool to grow their business.
And I'm David Brier. I do not touch tabletops, and I do drink fine espresso and incredible artisanal dark chocolate. And when I'm not doing that, I'm actually helping entrepreneurs and business owners grow their brands so that they rise above the noise and defy gravity.
All right, the topic for this episode, we're going to talk about some life advice. We're going to define success and what that means to us, and we're going to give you guys some tips on routines and personal development that we all tend to follow. So let's start with David at the other here on the table. So David, how would you define success today?
Personally,
Yes.
I would say basically being able to live life on my terms. And what that means is working with those that I enjoy working with, that I feel that I can absolutely benefit in the world and in their careers and in their businesses and brands. And at the same time, being able to call my shots so that if I want to go someplace with my wife, or I want to come to Mount Rushmore and hang out with my buddies here, you know, that I have the wherewithal to be able to do that. That to me is success, and just knowing that I can actually benefit others. All of that is couched under the umbrella of being able to benefit others. If I am not being of value to others, then all the rest of it is freaking meaningless. And I say that because there's quite a few people online who are like, hey, you want freedom, you want wealth, you want this, you want that, and like, what the hell's the anchor? Well, the anchor, if I have all of that and I'm not helping people, that is miserable. That is not success to me.
I would say that I define success a little differently than when I first started. I think that success to me is knowing where you want to go and knowing you're on the path to get there. I've met a lot of successful people, and some individuals are lost and miserable. So rather than it being a place, I think it's actually a verb. It's an action. You are a success if you are on the pathway to obtaining a goal. And I guess it's a realization that you are making incremental progress within a journey that's clear and laid out for you.
Yeah, like you, Mike, I think I had a different version of success when I was younger, absolutely. Growing up without money and resources. Most people, unfortunately, focus on the financial side of things, and that was what I was really focused on in my 20s and part of my 30s. And then I started to realize that happiness and fulfillment are a lot more important, and we start to value time after a certain point. And for me, that was around age 38. I started to realize that the value of time meant more than just the value of money. And I started to look at some of the people that I thought were financially successful and assessing who they really were and their character and do they really enjoy life. And man, I'm just seeing a lot of bad examples of that. They maybe had really one good thing going for them, but their health was bad, their marriages were bad, their friendships were bad, a lot of different things. So I think success to me is a good one, you said, is on that journey, focusing on some kind of a purpose that's greater than yourself and being excited about the unknown and what's, you know, the people you're going to meet and the things you're going to learn. Not thinking that you have all the answers right now. And so nowadays, if I was boiling this all down to one word, it'd just be fulfillment.
Man, that's good. It's funny because I listen to y'all and I think in the beginning, success is for us personally is, and you do, there's got to be money involved because we've got to pay our bills. Mm-hmm. And I think that what I've discovered along the way is, in the beginning, it's for me. I want to know, look, can I do this? Can I make this work? Can I learn how to do it? Can I be successful at it? And successful what that means is, can I make money? Can I pay my bills? Can I exceed expectations? Can I become one of the best? Whatever it is. But I look at everything now, how's this going to affect me and what I want, what I'm trying to build? And then how's this affect us? I've got a team. I've got a team around me. And I mean, I consider you guys my team. I consider my people in my office my team. Even my community that I'm building as my team. But then I look at how does this affect the world? And whenever you look at what you're doing as, can I survive? Can I make a living? Can I do well? Can I exceed? Can I become the top of the top and affect not just yourself, not just your community, but you can affect the world and make change in it? I think to me that is such an amazing level of success that we all want to reach.
I think having kids dramatically changed this for me. I have 3 little ones under 6. I have a 2-month-old, a 3.5-year-old, and a 5.5-year-old, who reminds me that she's a 5 3/4 or 7/8 or whatever it is. It's always like very exact. But I think like for me, the focus was on one singular area of my life, like how well am I doing? And I think what happens is you start to pull back from a lot of other areas in your life. Like you're not maybe helping in certain areas, or maybe you're not assisting in a fundraiser, you're not doing these different things. And it gets really hard to survive like that because you're so focused on just that one area of your life. And to me, it's like, how well am I doing in how many different areas of my life? And the thing I've found is surviving is just that one. It's so much easier when you're giving in a lot of different areas, but you've also realized, how much time can I give in those areas, right? Because you are only one person. So to me, it's when I've kind of realized that, sure, to lock yourself in a room and work for 12 hours a day and work towards something, like it'll help you get a project done. But you're going to find that you're really not doing well. It's, how many areas of your life can you do well in?
What is the one thing that you really, well, it's probably not just one thing, there's multiple things. We heard a couple of people mention the word sacrifice. What is it that you feel that you've had to sacrifice to achieve your level of success?
David?
Assuming that I've got all the answers. I think everybody has that to a certain extent, either whether it's through not wanting to appear stupid or not wanting to appear whatever. But, it's like there was one thing that as I was kind of coming into my own and starting my entrepreneurial career, here was the interesting thing for me. And I just mentioned this as a little story because I think a lot of us, the way the educational system is set up, teaches us this. We're taught a specific skill. So in my case, it was like being a designer. I was not taught anything. How do I negotiate? How do I present? How do I talk to somebody? How do I reach out to somebody for the first time? What's going to happen? What's my career? What are going to be the tools that will change in 10 years into my career, 20 years into my career, 30 years into my career? So the thing is that we're taught, be a great whatever, whether it's, let's say, a plumber, whether it's a coach, whether it's a financial advisor, whether it's a designer, whatever. We're taught the skill, we're not taught the other skills. So all of a sudden, we have to kind of go, wait a second, that one thing that we thought was the answer to everything is, we realize that's maybe 20%. That's like, and we got 80% of other skills that must complement to amplify that and bring that to life. So to me, it's an element of humility. It's an element of putting one's pride aside. And so I had to realize that as talented as I was, my talent was not the singular answer to everything. There were many other things I had to learn, and I didn't have mentors in my life. Like I didn't have like an incredibly like successful people who were in my family that were like, that could pass it along. Say, hey, by the way, here's some tips. So I had to build those relationships and read books and learn from others, et cetera, et cetera. So that to me is kind of like the thing of like realizing, putting it in perspective of, and being willing to learn, being open to learning, being open to asking questions, seeing that as a strength and not as a weakness.
I would say that I sacrificed comfort, and I don't know if that's a bad thing, but I would say if you go into this world of entrepreneurship, you are going to give up comfort in, and I guess it's in totality, right? When it comes to paying your bills, when you're working a 9-to-5 job, the comfort that the money will always be there every Friday, or a standard relationship. Well, I'll be here 6 o'clock at night, let's go out to dinner. You don't know what's going to happen next week or next month. And so that normalcy goes away. And as time goes on, you actually despise that normalcy. A couple years ago, I hit a certain level income-wise, and I know that I could stay there. I could stay small, and I could stay in that comfort zone making a couple $100,000 a year and be good. But I know if you stay too long in a certain area, the storm will take you, and you eventually get slow. And if you stop testing yourself, nothing good comes from that. So it's this constant pursuit of transformation, adventure, and discomfort. And eventually you start to crave it. So do I look at it as a sacrifice now? Not so much, but in the beginning, it was an absolute sacrifice.
I would say that for me, it'll be very obvious things. These are not super deep wisdom, but I think it's a good way for listeners to reflect on fundamentals. For me, it was a sacrifice in time, money, and relationships. And when I did not have money, I sacrificed a lot of time. And where I'm going with this is all about stacking skills. Success to me, to be able to get to the financial level, was all about learning new skills that are valuable to the market, which people would highly compensate you for, whether that's your degree or your educations or your certifications. Those usually take time and money to attain those things, and you become more valuable to the market, and you can create more income for yourself, which allows you to have more of the time freedom and the location freedom that you crave. Now, along the way, I say I sacrifice relationships because I don't want to call those friendships. Too many people basically list everybody as a friend. Like, you got all these Facebook people and you're calling them your friends. They're not your friends. They're acquaintances at best, or they're relationships. And I think that truly there are certain people that come into your life that are only meant to be there temporarily. You learn things from them, good and bad, and then you move on. You make some adjustments to it and you keep moving forward. And so, yeah, I always had to sacrifice money to learn things, time to do things, to invest in those things, and unfortunately some of the relationships. But I really don't have any regrets on any of those three.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because I remember sacrificing money I didn't have. My first coach was Michael Gerber. And when you're hiring a coach like Michael Gerber, it's not cheap. But I found someone that I believed in what he said. And I found a lot of other coaches since then and still hire them. But I think friends, the people you hang around with, the relationships you have, if you think that you're going to get where you want to go and keep having the same relationships in your life, you're never going to get there. And I've heard it said many ways, but one of my favorite things to look at it is show me the 5 people that you hang out with, and I'll show you your future. Look at the people that you're hanging out with right now. And look, it may be a best friend. It may be a new acquaintance. It may be, I know.
There's 5 of us.
Look around who you're hanging out with. But you look at that, and some of these people in your life are not going to allow you to get to where you want to go. And it may be your wife, your girlfriend. It may be something like that. And it's funny, I was listening to Cody Sanchez talk the other day about 9 things to become or 10 things to become a 9-figure entrepreneur or whatever it is. And she may be counting pennies too. I don't know. But one of the last ones is look, you've got to have a great relationship. And you've got to have somebody behind you that believes in you and supports you and helps you and does all this. It's hard to do all this on your own. And there's a couple of us here that do a lot of that. But it is nice to have somebody to help support you, and that's going to help you reach greater successes than you could ever imagine. And one thing about that is, the friend part. I remember when I first started doing what I do, people would come up to me and say, "Dude, what are you doing? Okay, you're not a rock star. You're not a superstar. You're not this actor. You're nothing amazing. What are you doing?" It's like, man, I'm trying to make videos to teach people how to do what they do. Teach them how to do things that can help them every day. And those same people come up to me a year or two later saying, "How do you do that?"
It just happened last night, right? We were at the dinner.
Isn't
Guy
that
walks
crazy?
up and he says, I'm not a plumber, I'm a farmer, but Roger, you've helped me so much.
Yep.
And of course, we took opportunity as we were leaving the restaurant. I leaned over to the guy that had come over and was starstruck when he saw Roger. And he was like, oh my God. And then, of course, we made sure he got a selfie, and it was all really cool. And as we left, I just leaned over him and I said, yeah, we're his bodyguards.
It's a true story.
It is, and we're in South Dakota.
We all flexed as we walked out.
That's
too.
right.
Had to look a little meaner.
And I was pointing out to Roger a few seconds ago, I noticed his water bottle is distributed in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah.
I've been there before. Matter of fact,
you
just recently.
You just toured that-
Just
you just
recently.
toured
I
that
did.
place.
I went by to make sure the water was good that y'all were going to have here today.
You were speaking at a solo event there over the weekend.
I was. Spoke to myself, wondering why I was there.
It was a solo cup event. So I'm going to come at this a little bit differently than you guys did. And I'm going to say it's stupidity, balance, and sacrifice. Because I think there's ways I was stupid and I sacrificed when I didn't have to, and I think it made things harder. But then there's also the right times to know what to sacrifice. And I think being a dad is really it's kind of where I'm at in life right now. So a lot of this is influenced by having kids. And the thing I've always looked at is they're only going to be that little so long. So you take a look at, well, do I need that extra gym day this week? No, I don't, because I can go do something with them. So it's realizing how busy your calendar is with work, but not forgetting that you also have to be involved in those little lives around you. I think that's a really, really important thing, and it's something I always make time for. My 3-year-old gets me up every morning and says, Dad, chocolate chip pancakes, now, kitchen. So I go down and I feed the tiny dictator every morning. But you have to realize, sure, is getting that extra YouTube video optimized today going to matter that much if I don't take this kid to the park for an hour? So it's also realizing, where should you sacrifice and where shouldn't you sacrifice? But then there's also the stupidity of it. In 2020, we grew faster than we ever grew before, and I didn't know how to handle that. And so what did I do? I decided the right handling was we only had so much income, and we needed more people to deliver the services we were selling. So I decided for 6 months we were only going to pay employees and not pay ourselves. Dumbest decision I ever made, because at the same time, when you are coming from the position of need and that you don't have and from lack, you make really bad decisions that for us, it actually slowed us down a little bit. So you have to realize when is the right time to sacrifice correctly, because also sacrificing, it's a certain way of being. So if you're doing things from a position of where you're sacrificing, you're going to make bad decisions sometimes too. So it's also realizing the right decision, the wrong decision, when should you sacrifice, and is this a stupid decision?
One thing thinking about that, one of the biggest sacrifices I had to do was get rid of my attitude, because I'd been a successful plumber. I'd done well. And I remember looking at people and saying, look, I'm never changing y'all. This is me. I do what I do. I'll get there the way I get there. But without making changes in our lives and our attitudes and what we do day to day, I don't think any of us get to where we are.
So your ego had to die.
I had to turn it off.
Isn't that weird how we all have to realize at one point that in order to become someone more, some part of us has to die? Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that's the apparency, though. It's it's actually an inclusion of others. It's actually, the apparency is we're giving up a part of ourselves. But what we're giving up the part of ourselves that actually is small and is not inclusive, and we're actually expanding. We're getting so much more, but it's oftentimes seen as sacrifice. I mean, I totally agree. It's just an interesting nuance, because what is one really sacrificing when one is basically only focused on themselves? You're sacrificing being of value to others. You're sacrificing helping others more than you possibly thought you could. You're sacrificing playing a bigger game. So it's just an interesting angle from whichever one approaches it at.
We've got a wide age range here in this group.
Oh, here we go.
It was inevitable, Roger.
No, you brought up the ego. You brought up the losing the attitude or things like that. It's we've always heard the phrase, and I'm sure some of the younger listeners will probably roll their eyes, but age and wisdom, that kind of stuff, right? And when you're younger, you're kind of defined. You're like, screw that. I'm more successful than that older person, so I know more. And I remember being 20s and having an engineering degree and all these things to kind of pump up your social status, right? Mm-hmm. And having the difficulty with being wrong about things. And I wanted to learn things and prove people wrong. And I had that in my 20s, really hard. And so you start to realize that you think you know more than you do when you're young, especially in your 20s and 30s. You think you know more than you really do, and you have a lot of confidence and certainty around that, and that no doubt delivers some level of success. But then you get in your 40s and you start to be more reflective and looking back, and then 50s, and I think you are 60, Roger, right? So 60, he's just at the beginning of that decade. But the older we get, we start to be more reflective and looking back and assessing what things we could have done better, and also becoming more self-aware. And that just definitely comes with age and wisdom and learning and more experiences and life journey. And so when we're younger, we think we know more than we do, and that gets us to a certain point. But then when you get older, you're like, man, I didn't know shit. Like I really didn't. And I'm not saying that because I'm like the old man shouting, stay off my lawn. I'm really looking back through my 40s, which is the last decade that I passed through, is a very self-awareness, awakening type age for me. And I was like, man, now I'm not so concerned with trying to prove everything that I know, but I'm more excited about the things I don't know. And I'm more excited about the uncertainty and the unpredictability and the things that are coming in the future and the things that I don't even understand is going to happen, that are going to play out. So I think I became more fearless about uncertainty and unpredictability, where I was in the early days, I wanted predictability and steady paycheck and things like you were talking about. So,
Well, I think there's two things this makes me think of. Like the first is, I think often you can go kind of too far the other way with seeking advice, where you can seek too much advice from too many people or too many authors, and then you're trying to mix messages that don't make sense. And I think often it's going deep into, either the leadership or advice of one to maybe two people at the most, and kind of deciding that's what you're going to do. Otherwise, you're going to read 50 self-help or business books, and you're going to say they say 50 things that all disagree with each other. So good luck applying that, I think, is one part of it. But I think also, and this is kind of something I've learned with time too, as you mentioned, Tony, like thinking, you know everything, and I think if you think you're the smartest person in every room you're in, you need a new room. Like that's a real problem, because you need to be in a place where, you can gain knowledge and wisdom and things from others, because experience can cut your learning curve big time, right? People have made those mistakes. They've done those things. Like, why do you need to reinvent the wheel? And you probably see this a lot in the trades, Roger. I think it's why, you and I have had many conversations about apprenticeships and how much value there is to that, working for somebody that's done it. I worked for a house painter all through high school, college, and grad school. And though I'm not doing that, it was one of the best jobs I ever had. The guy was in his late 60s, early 70s, and he taught me so much about life and experience and things that I still use to this day. And I think not having something like apprenticeships like they do in the trades is something people are really missing out on.
I've also seen people who do not sacrifice anything, and they fear getting older. I just turned 40. I'm around a lot of people who are just turning 40. They've had the same job for the past 15 years. They don't even want to talk about their birthday. I talk about my birthday like I'm an 18-year-old girl. I just want to talk about it all day, every day for a week straight.
Oh, no, we see you.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And
that 18-year-old girl thing is kind of weird to watch, but we enjoy it.
Well, that's actually how you go through life.
I think when you see somebody who doesn't sacrifice anything and they're the same person for 15, 20 years, they don't see any growth. And that's why I like putting my chips in the middle and learning as I go, because I see the growth and I see who I used to be and I see the chapters of life. And I think in order for you to experience that, sacrifice and giving up something, that delayed gratification, but also risking it to have a better life is a part of it.
I love putting my chips in the middle, especially if it's accompanied by really good salsa and excellent guacamole. That's when it really gets good.
I think Roger wanted to say something about apprenticeships.
The apprenticeships are huge, but I think that, now, before we go any further, how old are you?
37.
And I'm 60.
51.
40.
65?
You're 65?
65.
Dang it, I always thought I was the oldest one in the
You like
room.
how he doesn't volunteer that most of the
I
time?
feel better already.
Like people have been ragging on you all morning, and he didn't volunteer that.
What
Wasn't asked.
what we're talking about here, though, is I literally did not start learning till I was 55. I'm going to say 50, 55, right around in there. And when I realized it, it was, there's people out here that have already done what I want to do. And getting the right coaches, the right consultants. And one thing that I watch people do along the way, and I want to talk about the learning thing, and that's what you mentioned that really hit me. But one thing I learned along the way is people hire coaches and consultants, and then they go home and say, you know what? He has no idea what he's talking about. I'm going to do it this way. And they may not know your exact business, but if they understand business, they know more about it than you. But one thing about the continuous learning thing that I've seen for the last 6 years, people will walk into a room and learn, and they'll walk out with 10 pages of notes. And they'll go home, and Monday they get up and go to work. And they never look back at their notes. And I mean, I run into people at conferences that have been at the same conference for 6 years in a row, and they're looking at me saying, well, how did you do it? What is the one thing? And my one thing is implementation.
Yeah, motion.
And I walk into conferences and I learn things now, but I always walk out. I will have one big thing. This is something I need to do right now. And I always look at what will reflect my bottom line, what will show up there. Because if I can implement something that will show up on my bottom line, now I have money to invest to hire more people, to expand, to do whatever it is I want to do. But we learn a lot of things. And if you're one of these people that you go to every conference every year and you're still doing the same shit you were doing 5 years ago, it ain't freaking working.
Yeah, well, it's network marketing is what got me started, kind of going from being a teacher into like trying to figure out business. And I think that's like an epidemic you see in that industry. There's so many people that are looking for, well, is this the speaker that's going to change my life? Or is this the event that's going to change my life? And people just don't realize it's motion and action and implementation. They just think they need to go to the next event because that's what they've been told. If you go to the next event, that's going to change
This
it.
guy's going to change your life.
It's wild, man. It really is.
So
I've actually reprimanded people who've taken either my master class or if I'm coaching them one-on-one, and I see them. You could tell those who are like note takers. They kind of have a way that it's like a natural reflex. Like they kind of pull out their pad and they start to. And if I notice that, I say, "Excuse me, put your pen and your paper down." I said, "You need to be understanding to implement. You take another note. First of all, when was the last time you actually looked back at any of your notes?" And they're like, "Never." That's right. And just like what you just said. And I just say, no, put it down. But I mean, it's literally like asking them to practically cut off their arm. It's unbelievable how connected they are because they think that the writing down and documenting it will somehow equate, and it doesn't. Unless it transfers to action, it's not really understanding. Those two have to be connected.
You know what's interesting though too? Like it's almost like I'm trying to explain this. Like it's not operating directly on something. It's kind of using that thing to keep you from confronting the thing.
That's
if
right.
that makes sense.
That's right.
Like for me, the last year I've been talking a lot about the Roman Empire, right? And my master's is in that era in time. I don't know if I recommend this to people. I didn't take notes in school. I sat and I had conversations with the teacher and I asked questions and I asked the definitions of things and I wanted to know what they mean. And I understand those things and I can converse about them and have conversations for hours because I was going for my own understanding on it. And I think often people just have to get it on that piece of paper. They don't know what it means. They don't know how to use it. But if it's on that piece of paper, like I feel like I'm doing something about it when you're actually not confronting the thing you're supposed to be confronting.
Well, society teaches you that if you take notes and if you read and then you're given a test and if you pass it, that's a win. That means nothing as an entrepreneur.
It's memorization.
Right?
It's not implementation.
So it's society, it's the school system, in my opinion, that's teaching people the wrong way of implementation. Hey, do this and then you'll get that. Well, in entrepreneurship, there is no test, if you will, that's given to you by somebody. Nobody's
There is, but it's by fire.
But it's by fire, but it's not a person. It's not a person giving you permission. You have to give yourself permission. And so by taking all those notes, you may think internally that that's a win. When in reality, the win is actually putting yourself out there, putting on the line, getting on sales calls, doing podcast interviews, classifying a new way of looking at what a win is. And you're right, that people taking notes, they think automatically, oh, I'm moving towards the goal. Not really. Mm-hmm. Society has taught you wrong.
Well,
There's a phrase that we often hear is these people that go to all these different conferences and seminars, we call them success zombies. And the reason is they're kind of brainless and they're wandering around in the hallways in these seminars and they're consuming the knowledge, the brains of other people on stage. And they're always in this over preparation mode and they're always talking about someday I'm going to do this, someday I'm going to do that. And if you look at the calendar, there's no someday on the calendar. So when is that actual day? Start putting actual time and days to the tasks that you have. And to add to what Roger was talking about, the implementation, most people will only do the things that they enjoy doing and the things that they're good at doing. And that's usually the biggest problem, because they'll come back from these seminars with a list of things that are very good points, but they don't know the right sequence. They don't know what he's talking about. How do I increase the bottom line? How do I make this company more profitable to give me sort of breathing room to get this thing to grow? And then I can start doing the other things that need to be done. But people gravitate toward the things they want to do, they enjoy doing, and that they're already good at. And those things can make you feel like you're being busy, but you're not really being productive, and your profit doesn't change, your company doesn't grow anymore, your bank account stays the same or goes negative. And we see you at all these different events. And another tip on that is, like, if you're trying to build an audience or influence, you shouldn't be attending all these events and sitting in the spectator seats.
Yeah.
You should be at least on the stage or doing something involved with the event rather than just always being a spectator. Because if you have a lot of access to yourself, your value in the market, the perceived market, actually drops.
And become go VIP. No matter what conference you go to, go VIP. Talk to the speakers. Ask them questions. You know, I do take notes, but I'll go through my notes. And when I write down something that I'm like, man, this could be a game changer, I'll put like an asterisk.
Yeah, I do
Sometimes I'll put 2 asterisks. Sometimes I'll put 2 asterisks and an arrow that means get this shit done. And I love what you said, because when I go through my notes, I don't want to do the fun stuff. I don't want to do, oh, you know what, I could do this better. Let me work on this. I look at this list and say, what am I not doing? What on this list is something that other people are doing, that I see other people doing, that I see other people doing well, but I'm thinking, man, if we could do this, it would change things. So those are the kind of things I look for, and then go all in, learn how to do it, hire the right coach to learn how to do it, get the right courses, whatever it is, learn how to do something you're not doing. Because if you keep doing the same shit, you're going to be right in the same spot.
It's usually the thing that you procrastinate the most, or you feel the most anxiety or pressure around doing, that is the one that's going to move the needle for you the most.
Mm-hmm. Well, the quote I love is, go where you ought to go, not where others go. I think deep inside, you know what you need to work on. And it might be shit that is very boring or things that you hate, but you internally know what you need to do. And sometimes you will avoid it. You will distract yourself. Oh, I'm going to go focus on this, or I'm going to go to this event. You're looking for a distraction. But I think deep inside, you know the answer, and you're just trying to avoid it.
If I have a choice between working with one person or company versus another, I do not want, and one is, well, we've got the credentials, we've got the diplomas, and we have all of the right answers. You ask us the questions, we have all of the right answers. If I have that as one option, and option 2 is someone who actually asks the right questions, listens more than they talk, and actually can think on their feet, and I can actually pose a scenario, and they can actually look at it and not give me the right answers off of the, textbook stuff, but they actually can go, da-da-da-da-da. I can know by the way that they think and the dots that they're connecting. Are they connecting dots that may not be something that you'd learn out of a textbook? That's the one I'm going to go with, not the one that has the right old diplomas and credentials.
Let's try a short answer question here. Each of us come up with 3 words that describe us that we would say that contributed to our success. No explanations, just 3 words. And I want to see if any of us have things in common that listeners may be able to pick up on. So, Jeremy.
I don't know, man.
It's a good question.
It's a great question, because the first thing I thought about, I'm very mundane in a lot of ways, stupidly consistent, and I read a lot. That's what I would say it is. Yeah, it's
Interesting.
like, dude, I've eaten the same thing every day for 10 years of my life, and it's worked very well for me. You know what I mean?
It's a consistency.
I'll jump in there if you want. Or
Go ahead, Mike.
I would say there are 3 that stick out: adventurous, curious, and rebellious.
Oh, yeah, that's you, Roger.
The first word that pops into my mind is open. Knowledge. The more I've learned, the more I've grown. And implementation. I look at new things every day and think, wow,
So action,
action. Yeah, big word.
David.
Tenacious, disruptive, creative.
I'd say for myself, I would say consistency, discipline, and relentlessness.
And those are good.
I mean, that's our identity.
That's why I hate
I think
going first.
you will act
Yeah,
in
you're good.
accordance. You will act in accordance to who you believe yourself to be. So if you're out there watching this or listening to this, write down 3 words that you identify with, and you are going to act in those ways constantly. So if you say you are somebody who is always waiting for the perfect moment, or a perfectionist, if you will, you're going to wait for that perfect opportunity, the perfect sale, the perfect business, and usually you're not going to get shit done. So
Fairy tale land.
I think that those words that you just outlined for every one of us, we will act in accordance with those every single day, whether we know it or not.
That's a good tip. Identity is the strong point. And here's a good tip for you guys. It is literally impossible for you to admire the characteristics or qualities in other people that you don't contain within yourself. Now, you may not be demonstrating
Amen.
those things.
Amen.
But let's, for example, if you see somebody that's on a stage and they're an excellent communicator and you admire that they have really strong communication skills, well, guess what? You will never admire that unless that is contained within you. Now, it becomes your sole duty to learn how to extract that with coaches by doing the reps, by doing the hard and nasty work to be able to extract that and showcase that to the world. But we do not admire things that we do not contain within us. So if you look at people and you go, hey, I admire their discipline, I admire their consistency, their communication skills, their social status, the way they communicate or do things, that is an indicator those are things that you should be working on and figuring that out for yourself. And it is within you.
And Tony, I love that, but a lot of times we don't know that that's in us. And I had never spoken on a stage. 8 years ago, I'm at Financial Peace University, and I saw Dave Ramsey, and it was on a video, and he gets out and he walks on stage, and he starts talking about money, and he's walking back and forth on stage, and he's using the stage well, and he's using his voice, command of his voice so well. And I'm watching him, and I literally leaned up to Julie sitting in front of me, and I said, I can do that. And she said, what, talk about money? I said, oh, God, no, I suck at that. I said, but I could get on stage and talk about plumbing or something. Never thinking that I would do it.
No.
Never thinking that is where I would be. But, I mean, one of the last events that I spoke at, literally when I got off stage, one of the guys that had seen me spoke before came up and said, dude, you're becoming the most amazing speaker, and you the way you used your language, the way you used the stage, the way you pause, the way you emphasize certain things, said you're becoming phenomenal. And this is something I never thought I would do. So look at these people that you're looking at and think, God, I love that. You may love it because that's what you see you doing.
That's it.
So think about learning those things and growing.
Well, it's also covering up your own blind spots too. Like, I know it's finding people that you trust, that you know will give you the right feedback when needed. So just going back to speaking, I do a lot of speaking now. I didn't do as much in like 2018, 2019. So one of the first, bigger talks I had done, I actually took the recording, I sent it to you, Tony, and I said, what would you do better? What would you do differently? What would you adjust? And I put a lot of trust in how you operate as a speaker, and that feedback is valuable because you need to have people that can, oftentimes, there's 2 ways you're going to look at something. You're going to be overly critical of yourself, or you're not going to be critical enough. You're never going to be in the middle and be like, that was great, I did this wrong, did this right. Oftentimes, I'm not saying it's every time, but oftentimes you're going to be either overly critical or not critical enough. And you do need that other person that you trust that can give you the feedback.
I think the overcritical is the more common one. The other one kind of leans towards delusion, and I think that tends to be more prevalent when you're new to something. Maybe you think that you're going to be an influencer, you think you're going to be a speaker, and you kind of have that delusional stuff. And sometimes that works out. Sometimes your skill set actually catches up with your delusion, which is great. But I think as you become more professional and start to understand the actual tactics and the flaws and the things that you're not operating with, you become more critical of those things.
I like that because the delusional part, I tell you where I see the delusional part. Somebody that's done it twice, and now they're like, "Look, I'm a guru. I'm an influencer.
I flipped 2 houses.
It's like being a
I
sophomore
know.
in high
Flipped
school.
2 houses.
I own 2 doors, and you know what? I am rocking the world." But I mean, seriously, there's so many people, and I can say this about each of y'all, looking at what you've done, how you've done it, the history that I've seen. Each one of us have experience at what we do. We have history. We have successes. We have failures. But you know what? We learn from those. And the neat thing about that is if you're going to get good at something, every great person out there has a coach, somebody that taught them how to get to where they're at. I don't care what it is. I don't care what level it is. If you think there's somebody out there that's amazing that never had a coach, you're delusional. So the whole thing is, look at the people that are doing what you want to do. Look at the people that are successful at what you want to do. And those are the people to learn from. And most of them want to teach you. We want to make the world a better place.
You know, to add to that, several of us kind of started in the same plus or minus 4 or 5 year frame. We all started to get to know each other back then. And each of us has grown this audience through all the things we've been talking about in this show so far. But we also have counterparts and peers that have kind of started at the same time as us that are never growing. They're like the same position they were 5 years ago. And it goes back to when you look at that, Roger, they're not investing in coaches. When you see these people that actually have they have the potential. I look at them as like, man, that person could be a superstar if they would just do these things and hire somebody to get that thing figured out. And they have the potential. And I think most people don't understand the potential they do have. And you never see them investing and hiring a coach or a mentor or joining credible programs that can get them to that next level. They're so holding on to the dollars and the time that they have and thinking they can do it themselves. And guys, that's a fallacy.
Every conference that I go to, I try to sit on the front row. I still take notes.
You do.
And people laugh at me at social media conferences. They'll come up to me and say, "Dude, you probably could have taught this session." I was like, I get that. And like, but you're on the front row. You're here before anybody else. You're taking notes. You're asking questions. After the session, you're out in the hallway talking to the speaker. Why? And I'm like, because if I can get one thing that I can do better, that I can improve upon, that I can start doing, this can change everything that I do. And we've always got to be open and willing to learn. And I think a lot of people aren't these days.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add over there?
Tons of thoughts. I mean, I agree with everything that everyone's saying, and I don't think that I have anything remarkably insightful to add to it. I mean, I'll pick it up on the next one.
Let's shift
Well,
in.
before you jump, I was just thinking, because that actually got me thinking about when Roger was talking about this. I'm going to go a little history on you. If you look at it, I think people have talked about in our society nowadays, like, is there any space for, for men or for the military man or for the competitor or whatever it means. And I think if you look at kind of modern business, the modern entrepreneur has become, what that centurion would be or what that general would be. It's somebody who's, they're a tactician. They're trying to figure out how to do something. They're trying to figure out how to improve. And I think if you can look at yourself of, you're often trying to win battles in your, everyday experience as an entrepreneur, but you're ultimately trying to win a war. And I think you have to remember that too. You're not trying to win just a short-sighted battle. To me, I think it's really interesting in that perspective.
So let's shift this topic to describing the importance of habits and routines. And I want each of us to share maybe some unusual things or things that maybe aren't unusual, but are really habits and routines that have really worked for us so that listeners can get a better idea of, maybe some of the things that we're doing. So
do you want to start off?
Yeah.
Start every day with a nice bath, bro. No.
if you do that, share it.
I think it aligns to a lot of what each of us has said in one way or another. It is showing up and demanding production of ourselves. And I'll give a very, very concrete example. When I published Brand Intervention, and it was funny, it was like a thing I hadn't thought of. Usually I plan out, I anticipate things well, and I go, okay, I'm looking down the road. The book was about to come out in a couple of weeks. And I realized, holy shit, if I put the book out, there's going to be definitely a percentage of people who are discovering me for the first time. And if I don't now have sort of a body of information that they could quickly digest and to discover and learn more about me, it's going to be sort of a one-hit wonder. I mean, we all know of bands that in music history that they have one hit and then they disappeared, right? And there's plenty of people in business, the same thing. So I was like, damn, I didn't want to do that. So all of a sudden, I spent a little bit, a few days thinking about it, and I came up with, I'm going to do 1 Minute Wednesdays. And it was like every Wednesday, I was gonna have something that was like an insightful, actionable, 60-second video. And I thought to myself, how the hell am I going to do that? I'd never done that before. How am I going to produce that? I mean, all the logistical shit. And I could have said, oh, that's too much, and not done it, which would have been a disaster. So I set my own parameters. I demanded that of myself, and I never failed to just boom, 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 boom. So I think the key point here is force yourself to some regimen. And that's a little uncomfortable. That stretches you a little bit. And then get that in as a routine. And then up it a little more and get that in as a routine. But force yourself. And it's got to be not, I'm going to study more. I'm going to watch more YouTube videos to learn more. That's not what we're talking about.
Well, that's a good thing to do.
Like, I want to hear more. I want less about business and social media. Like, what about your life? Like, personal life takeaways that you could share that.
Here, I'll start out and then come back to you because literally as soon as he started talking about this, the changes that I've made, I know when I come in the office in the morning, that's when my energy's up. That's when my mind's going. It's fresh. It's excited. I've got a good night's rest. I got up and worked out. I take my vitamins. I do what I do. And when I come in, I'm ready to go. And literally, we've got my team where, man, when I walk in, the studio's up. It's ready to go. I can literally walk in, hit record, and say go. And I can do it that fast. But things like that, those little habits and it took a while because, we'd get behind, and then at 3 p.m, they're like, Roger, I need you to shoot a video. It's like,
brain dead.
It's like, okay. And you get in there, and it's like, okay, if you want to do this. And I was seeing it, and I was feeling it. And when you're ever in a position that you're like, look, I don't want to walk in here and do this right now. Don't do it. Do it tomorrow and change the time. Do something like that. But my personal thing is if I go in the morning, right now, man, I feel good. Yesterday afternoon, it probably wasn't quite this level. But
after dinner, you were,
No, right. Yeah, right after dinner, I was like, tap me out. But, Angel's Envy will do that and help you get to that middle. And that's something else I have to do. Every now and then when my mind's running 90 miles an hour, I'll make a drink before I go to bed because if I don't, I will lay there till 1 a.m. and just run. Now, I've got sleep supplements that I do sometimes. I've got different things that I do. But another one is going to bed early because I know if I can get in the sleep, I started wearing an Oura ring to tell myself, hey, I can go back and look at my sleep habit last night. How much deep sleep did I get? How much light sleep did I get? How much REM level did I get? And look at, am I getting enough rest to do the things that I need to do? And if you're just leaving all that up for guess or hope, I hope I get enough rest tomorrow, but I'm going to, or enough rest for tomorrow, but I'm going to stay up till 2 this morning because I've got a hot date tonight and I know what's going to happen afterwards. I mean, Mike knows, the rest of y'all probably don't. But, things like that, it's like you've got to know what you've got to do to get yourself in that mindset. And some of these habits, guys, are habits you need to stop doing. And those are the big ones. Those are the tough ones.
I got something I want to say to that too, because I think oftentimes like there's these things that get cool to do, and like everybody's doing, like I made the joke about cold showers, like everybody's doing cold showers, or everybody puts on their watch for 4:45 like Jocko and gets up and takes a picture of it and goes and works out. And I think you have to take a look at, I look at information, I look at habits the same way. If it has usefulness, it has value to me. If it doesn't have usefulness, it has no value to me. So I've tried working out early. Can I get it done early? Sure. But do I have a better workout around lunchtime? Absolutely. So I want to feel good about the workout I had. Yeah. So I take a look at what I'm doing and I say, does that habit have value and does that habit have usefulness to me? Everybody does. We were talking about bulletproof coffee the other day, and
Not an advertisement.
not an advertisement. But why did I stop doing it? Because it gave me diarrhea. Was it cool to say I did it? Absolutely, but it gave me
So
diarrhea.
if you're constipated, try bulletproof coffee.
No, but my point is, like, how valuable is that habit to you? Is it useful to you? Is it useful to your lifestyle? Like, I have kids, so my values and things that I do have changed dramatically, where I want to spend first thing in the morning with them. I want to spend that time with them because that's when I'm most present and they're most pleasant. So you want to see, like, what works best for your life, and just because everybody's doing a habit, you don't have to do it if it doesn't have value to you.
All habits are not for you.
Yeah, I think that I get my advice from two people, I guess you could say, when it comes to building the schedule that I want, and that comes from Jordan Peterson. Quit trying to build your life as secondary to your business. Put your schedule in place and stick to it. Jeff Bezos has this great quote. He says that manage your energy, not your time, and that goes to Roger's point. You know, you will know whenever you feel your best, and if you have very difficult decisions to make it so you are at your best when you make them. So whenever I started to build a schedule that I wanted, I realized I was not a 4:45 guy. I look at people who are getting up at 4:45 and I laugh at those people. That's not me. That's their thing. It's not me. So the schedule that I wanted was to wake up right around 7, ease into my day, have 2 eggs, 2 pieces of toast, have my coffee ready to go, then get into business. As long as I move my business 1% every day, I feel like that's a win. Right around 6 o'clock, I go for a run, I get my exercise in, and then I go do some type of hobby, usually riding a dirt bike. Gets my mind off of things, it makes me feel young. And then I have some type of investment in family, whether it's with my brother or with my dad. So as long as I touch on all of that every single day, that's a habit that I want to stick to, and that's usually what produces the youthfulness. And Roger, to touch on your point, the
I went from youthfulness to you, by the way.
I love that you're thinking of youthfulness and me in the same breath.
But sleep, my God, if you do not get your sleep dialed in, you're screwed. You don't look good, you don't feel well. It's amazing how you could see somebody who is lacking sleep. And so I think it starts there, but if you understand what your perfect schedule looks like, you build that and you stick to it all the way.
Mike,
When you said
good luck with that 7, by the way, once you have children. When your
Yeah.
3-year-old comes in your room and
brings
is
me
like
to my next
slapping you in the
point.
face at 6 a.m., good luck.
Dogs are a lot easier to manage than kids. That
True.
brings me to my next point.
And when you talked about sleep and looking good, David, are you getting enough rest?
How do we spell asshole?
ROGER.
So you know, sometimes you know, early senility kind of shows up as I have life experience. Don't confuse those two. That's my first bit of advice. No. So sleep for sure, absolutely. I was years ago. I would work. I'd wake up early and I'd work late. So that's the first thing. Certainly having a discipline point. The other thing I'd say also from a habitual standpoint is sometimes if I'm getting into a bit of a grind mode at work, I'll completely shift gears. That's it. Who haven't I spoken to that's like a great friend or just someone just to shift gears or go for a walk or whatever. I mean, those are just things to kind of shake it up, and because I'll push hard and I'm willing to stick it out, but sometimes it's like, wait, you know, this is just a gerbil mobile now. It's not resulting in production. So from a habitual standpoint, I'll have the judgment and go, you know what? I'm gonna call up Roger because he makes me laugh, right? We're just gonna like shoot the shit and just kind of riff, just kind of free up the you know, fixation on a particular problem. You know, in terms of other habits, I mean, I generally I love my raw vegetables. I love having raw vegetables with every meal, just to balance things out in terms of carbs and proteins and stuff like that. And one other thing, which is probably a more recent habitual thing, is because I do love my work and I do enjoy it, is really just turning that off and just hanging with my wife and actually just like phone go away and just actually really valuing I mean, I already value her, but it's like, it can't just value her here. I got to value her in action, in life.
That's right.
And so that's another habitual point.
Yeah, I'll add to this stuff because I think that we've all kind of have some good overlaps here. So to me, working full time now, going almost on 10 years now, full time at the house, you have to listen to your biological clock. So, Mike said he likes to stay up a little later and get up a little later. Some people get up early. I'm always been a morning person. I've always been an early person. And really for the last 15 years, I've not used an alarm clock. Even when I was in corporate, I didn't use an alarm clock. And the reason is because I understand that I usually sleep about 7 hours a night, unless I'm sick. Sometimes if you're sick, you sleep longer. But if I'm healthy, 6.5, 7 hours is how I'm going to sleep. So I can control when I go to bed. And if I control when I get to bed, I know that I'm going to get up 6 or 7 hours later. And so that's one tip. Because guys, I cannot stand, for most of my life, waking up to a damn annoying alarm clock. That is the worst. Imagine like every day hearing that is the first thing that's your stimulus. Like every day, like that you're pissed off, like hearing that thing, and it's got to have some psychological effect on you for the rest of the day. And so I was like, I don't want to hear that shit anymore. And so I just learned to control when I go to sleep. Now, other odd habits, I would say that I do have to exercise. Like to me, 6 days a week, I'm exercising one way or the other. Either that's lifting heavy at the gym or going skateboarding or just something. I want to burn 500 something calories. Skateboarding, I'll go burn 1,000 calories. That's always my goal. And so exercise on a daily basis. I'll take one day off for recovery and just kind of chill out. And it's usually on Sundays, easy. Spend more time with the family on those days. Discipline-wise, there's even times I'll experiment with things like where I didn't drink for 3 years. I started recently drinking only on special occasions because I realized I was starting to miss some of those special occasions with the wife or my son. And I felt like, I'd like to just have a drink right now. It's not because I was an alcoholic that I decided to quit drinking. I just realized that as I got older, I wasn't recovering like I used to when I was younger. When we were young and we go drink 2 or 3 or 4 drinks, like you wake up the next day and you're like ready to go and you don't feel anything. In my 40s, I started to realize like I felt like I was just foggy minded and kind of dragging ass the next day. And I started to realize like, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to feel like I'm dragging. And so even if I do drink now, it's one drink. I'll just have one drink, sometimes not even the whole drink, because I enjoy the alcohol and I enjoy the taste and I enjoy the socializing aspect of it, but I don't want to deal with the after effects. It's not worth the effort to me. So it was only recently, like really the last 6 months, I decided to have those one drinks if I want to. But for the 3 years prior, I didn't drink. And people would always think that you're an alcoholic when you go to the social settings and they're all ordering drinks and you're just like, I don't drink. And that's an identity thing we go back to. If you identify as someone that doesn't drink, that's your identity. I created that and I was able to keep it going. And my wife would be like, yeah, he doesn't drink. And everybody else was like, oh yeah, I used to be an alcoholic too. And I was like, no, I just decided I didn't want to drink. I can control that. And so that's kind of odd to hear. Some people will hear that and like, that's kind of odd. And one of the things I really don't like is pills. I don't like to do daily supplements or pills or vitamins or I don't like to do any of that crap. I try to get my nutrients from eating food and doing things the right way. Yeah, I know I could probably benefit from vitamins and all this and that, and I've heard it all, but I don't like the habit of relying on pills to do things for me. And, so to me, the biological clock thing is a big one because I think that, like Roger, I'm a creative person in the morning. When I wake up at around 5 in the morning, my mind is on fire and I want to be productive, and that's when I do my best thinking. And anything that's analytical or creating content or writing the next book, like I want to make sure that I'm using my peak mental, window of the day to do those kind of things. And so when I hear people like, oh, you got to go do hot goat yoga and you got to go work out first thing in the morning and you got to do all these things, like, no, because those are all physical things. They require zero mental energy. So when I started to listen to my body, I realized like I'm a very highly productive person between 5 a.m. till about noon. So I got a 7-hour window that I need to be focused on analytical things. And when I feel brain dead, which is usually around 2 in the afternoon, that's when I actually go to the gym. And I also like going to the gym at 2 in the afternoon because there's less people there. So I go to the gym between 3:30 type frame. And, so listen to your body. And if you're a night person, that's great. No judgment. Like just listen to your biological mind. Like what part of the day are you mentally on fire? Go spend that time to be doing the things that you should be doing. That's a creative work, analytical work, calculation work and guard that time. Block that out on your calendar and don't be doing exercise when you shouldn't be doing that, because you could do that any other part of the day.
That's a really good point too, because I know, like, for me, I was a competitive powerlifter in my 20s, so I'm a very competitive person when it comes to the gym. And I tried to do the early gym thing because, like, all right, get it out of the way, do whatever. But it was almost like I don't have the same strength as I do between 12 and 2 in the afternoon. And so it just becomes just kind of like doing it, right? I'm not trying to beat that weight or beat that rep or whatever it is. It was almost like telling us part of myself I didn't have to exist anymore. And that was really hard. We're going back to doing things at the time that's right for my body. It actually helped me in other areas of my life.
How many people out there are looking to start their dream business at the time that is the worst version of themselves?
Yeah.
Right? There are people out there who say, well, you work your job and then at 10 o'clock to midnight, work on your dream business. Well, I don't know if that's a good piece of advice for everybody, because that might be the worst version of themselves. And if they're putting all of their hopes and dreams on basically a time period that is producing the worst version of themselves, what's the chance of that actually succeeding? Maybe you have to do it, but I'm a big believer in removing the safety nets, burning the ships, and going all in. It's the only way that I was able to make it. So you wrote a book called Side Hustle Millionaire. What are your thoughts on individuals out there who are looking to start a business and maybe doing it at times that are not producing?
I think that you have to do it wherever you can fit it in, especially if you've got a family and if you've got a busy work schedule and you're trying to create the business. Definitely something is better than nothing, but the glory for most side hustle type businesses or anything that you want to start and grow, most of us have a lot of time on the weekends that we're screwing off. If you're out there watching football and spending hours and hours on the couch or binging Netflix or going to parties or doing all these things, realize that there's somebody out there that's outworking you because they're more serious about their goals. And that was me. There was a time that I was working 3 jobs and also starting a business. I mean, I built a 7-figure business while I was still working as an engineer. And on the weekends, I would still go wait tables because I wasn't where I wanted to be financially. And that's another thing that I think that's really a requirement for success, is being able to tolerating rejection. If you can really tolerate rejection on a long-term basis, that's a very good key to success. Because I'll give you an example. There was times I was working that engineering job, and it was a low-paying job at that time. I was probably making $45,000, $50,000 salary. And I would have plenty of time in the afternoon, so I was like, well, I'll just put my apron on and go back and work at the restaurant that I was working at while I was in college to make an extra $100 a night. And sometimes the employees from that engineering company would be in that restaurant, and I'd say, Tony, you're a project manager at this company. Like, what are you doing here? I was like, well, I'm bored. I get off at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I don't have any kids, so I go figure out how to make some extra money to get ahead. And they're like, but you're like, you're an engineer. And it's like, I understand that. But I'm not happy, and I'm not where I want to be in life. And I wasn't worried about that rejection or knocking myself down on the social status to be a waiter and things like that. And so, I built those companies, and most people don't realize, like the low point of my life was 2000, the year 2000. I was a new father. I was going broke. There was an economy downturn. A lot of things were going negative, and that's when I started the company that made millions of dollars. And so people that knew that I built that business, that knew me online, they didn't even know that I was doing all the other stuff and struggling while I built that business. So I built that at night. That's the only time I had.
Tony, one of the things I remember one night we went out to dinner, and normally if I have dinner after an event or something, I'll have a drink, whatever. And Tony's like, no, I don't want to drink. He says, look, I'm not saying I'm never going to drink again. I'm just not drinking right now because of that.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, it's so good because that's a habit that he said, look, I'm going to give this up. Now, I don't know if you drink a lot, drink often, nothing about it. He's like, look, I'm not drinking right now. Mike sitting next to you gave up sex and dating.
Yes, so I broke 6 figures.
I thought you still did.
He still hadn't started back up yet.
you're-
He hadn't started back up yet.
And
He's
he
thinking
still
about it.
hasn't drank.
He's like a monk.
For 2.5 years.
Yeah, he hires
No
girls,
dating.
but then he thinks about it.
But yeah, you don't
I
drink.
made up for it afterwards, but still, yeah.
You don't drink. You're very strict on what you eat.
Well,
as
I only gave up drinking in 2021, so a little over 3 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, to give up as a man, to give up women
Yeah.
for 2.5 years. And guys, remember, I said a while ago, some of the habits you're going to give up, maybe people that are in your life, but that's a huge distraction.
Oh, 100%.
Especially when you're single. When you're married, it can be different. It can be, hey, you're part of a team. This is what we're building. Lisa helps you do so many things.
Oh, yeah.
And I love it being at events when she's there because you can tell. She's like, oh, well, yeah, I know what that is. I set that up or I did that. Mm-hmm. But having the right person, and again, going back, having the right person, the right team, the right support system behind you is huge. But we're talking about habits you've adopted, but I think some of the biggest part of the habits you give up. And dating, that will put 40 hours a week back in your life at least.
And money and
a
drama,
shitload of money.
Mental energy. I'm telling you, it gave me a superpower. I would see my competitors and anybody out there, if they're out there going girl crazy, I can beat these people easily. It's a competitive advantage. And so it's tough because internally you're like, well, everybody else is doing it, and you really want to be out there dating.
And it's kind of fun to do.
It's absolutely, it's incredible. But you have to identify, if you're on your deathbed, what would you regret? And if you don't go all in on that dream, you're going to regret it. And I guess maybe you have to weigh, what is it worth for you? And to me, it was worth it to give up 2 years of your life of dating for a dream business. You can accomplish something that people only want. They'll never be able to achieve because they're not willing to give up what you were able to give up.
And he's gained the new skill of chanting like a Gregorian monk.
All work, all the time for
He
2
literally
years straight.
punches himself in the balls 10 times every morning when he wakes up, and it frees his mind.
Is that what I heard him in there doing this morning? Yeah, Mike and I have rooms next to each other. But you look at, I think that the reason that most of us are where we're at is we each had to give up something.
Yes.
And I like that. And it may be a habit. It may be a person. It may be a lifestyle. I mean, I've got friends that are doing really well. Well, for them to start doing well, they lived in their mother-in-law's basement for like a year and a half. And they're like, look, I knew what I wanted to build, and this is how we had to do it. So, man, habits are one of the biggest things, and it's always good to go back and look at. We talk about the older you get, you reflect. Tony talked about that a while ago. I look back at the friends I've given up, the different things like that, but then also what habits have I started doing that I wasn't doing before. And, Tony talked about carnivore diet a while back. And I'm like, okay, fresh vegetables tear me up. Veggies tear me up. But I always love them. I love nothing more. I make a salad that will blow your mind, but I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night like, okay, my stomach is killing me, and it just does. It destroys me. So you've got to look at, if I don't want to feel like that at night, if I know it's going to wake me up in the middle of the night, and I know I've got an important meeting with Tony tomorrow, do I really want to eat this amazing salad tonight? And a lot of people say, yeah, man, I'm not going to worry about it. This is what I want right now.
Good point.
And that's what you need to look at. And another thing, too, that David said a while ago about just picking up a phone call and calling. The phone conversations aren't, hey, what's happening? Hey, how are you? Stuff like that. It's not just superficial. How are you? How's the weather today? What's going on? It's, hey, you know what? A while back you talked about this business. What's going on with it? Well, man, I ran into this problem here. And you just talk. And it's not like it's a consultation. It's not like it's a business meeting. You just talk. And having a mastermind group, having people that you can just bounce idea. Well, man, I ran into this problem, and I did this, and this, and it didn't work. We talk about YouTube every time we talk to each other. And it's one of the biggest things is, this is just something that I'm doing, and this is what's going on. It's like, well, have you tried this? And it's like, no.
But it's even speed of implementation, because even you and I were talking about something YouTube related yesterday.
Yeah.
I didn't go to bed before I did it last night. I stayed up for an extra half hour to do it.
We definitely are action takers. David mentioned something yesterday during a conversation. We're also very certain. Go into that, David. I think that's a success factor.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, in terms of the conviction factor, we do it in many, many different ways. And even some of the conversations that Mike and I have had earlier this morning.
For sure.
He was certainly sticking to his guns.
Of course.
Now, he's sticking his guns. I'm
They
sticking to
had
mine.
no founding in reality, though.
Well, I mean, even back to dinner last night, there's conviction in everything we do.
Guys, every time we go out to
Absolutely.
dinner, they're always saying, "Why don't you try this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you break your habits? Come
Nope.
on,
He's
do
like,
what the
nope.
group is doing."
Or why don't you?
No,
cons-
it- no, it-
why don't you
not
consider
chance.
a
All right,
logical
first,
argument?
So first of all, let me correct that. None of us will ever say, do what the group is doing.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of
what I
individuals. That is a blatant lie.
Yeah, I don't
okay?
think
Let's
anybody
just handle
looked at
that.
each other last night and said, "Oh, gee, what are you ordering? What are you gonna have tonight?" I
I'll
may try
copy
that
you.
too.
Yeah, we're a bunch of individualistic guys, okay? But the bottom line is no, it was a fact of like, it was, hey, don't you want to try something different for yourself? Just in terms of the enjoyment, So it was more from that standpoint. But yes, conviction is a point that you'll see because I can guarantee, I can say this, and no one will dispute me at this table. There's not a single point of success that any of us have had where we've achieved success that we approached it tentatively,
Right.
right? We had conviction. It may have been premature. It may have been when we were young, when we were in our delusional, optimistic, we're immortal, bullets can be shot at us and they won't hit us, kind of thinking. But the bottom line is that conviction is something that you will find. Right? I mean, have you had any?
Absolutely.
Right? And
I've always been that way.
is there
As a kid.
a single success you've ever had? Well, I didn't have any conviction.
No, and it's funny because I was with the founders of Go High Level a few weeks back. And I love the way they look at it because, these people have conviction. They've built something amazing. And you look at how they do it. And each one of us, I think, we didn't just jump in and say, okay, I'm quitting everything else in the world. This is what I'm doing. I didn't quit plumbing to become a YouTuber. I kept doing it and thought, this is what I can do. And I love the way they look at it. They're like, when we implement a new idea, we call it a skateboard. It's a piece of wood with 4 wheels on it. We put it together, get it started, and we roll it out there. Now, after rolling it out there, we decide, does this just keep on rolling, roll off the cliff, or does this turn into a Lamborghini? We've got the idea started. We've started rolling it. It's moving. What do we do with it? And I think each one of us, I'm now doing multiple businesses. And I look at them and each one tie to what I'm doing. And any one of them I can talk about just as passionately as I can plumbing because I believe in it and I believe there's a reason for it and a need behind it. And I think that a lot of us are like that.
But I also want to balance this. Conviction doesn't mean stuck and unchanging and not adapting. In fact, it means the exact opposite. It's like I would say every one of us, even as much as you have certain disciplines that you're like, that's what I'm going to do, or Jeremy, like where you said, I'm mundane, there's certain things I do. Even with all of that, the conviction is there, and we're willing to risk certain things to lean in even more or to push it even farther. Can we accelerate or evolve things faster? We're willing to embrace a level of risk with that conviction.
Well, you're ready to weather the rejection.
Because it's going to be there.
You're going to get it. And
Or learn from.
think about if you're knocking
Okay,
doors,
what worked
if
or
you're
what didn't work.
selling, you're
Yeah.
going to get a lot of rejections. And people that don't have a tolerance for weathering the rejection will quit.
Yeah.
Well, I think it comes from the book Art of War. An army everywhere is an army nowhere. If you're trying to appease everyone, if you're trying to make too many decisions, you're going to fail. And people want to see individuals who are true believers. If you look up to certain speakers, certain business leaders, you'll realize that the great ones are true believers in their message. And will you follow somebody who doesn't truly believe in their message into battle? Absolutely not. And so when you're growing a team, you realize your words matter, not just your words, but how you say it. And if you're not a true believer, if you don't have conviction, individuals will not follow you into that storm, into those difficult times. Clients will not want to do business with you because, oh, you don't really believe in your message. You really don't think I can get across the finish line. So why would I follow you if you don't even believe in yourself? And I think that the more you get into this world of entrepreneurship, you can spot the true believers and those who don't believe in it. So it's a game changer. And I think that once you have that superpower of clarity, you realize, hey, I'm going to go this way all the way. And if I make a mistake, I'll fix myself. But I'm in it for the long haul, and I'm in it no matter what happens to me.
I love that.
That sounded like good final words from Mike there. So let's, we're wrapping up on time here. So let's hear some other final words.
And I'm going to go on what Mike just said. I network a lot. I get out to networking events, even conferences. I make it a point to get out and network with the people there. And it always blows my mind when I go to the networking conferences or networking events, and you're standing there talking to somebody, and they're telling you about what they do and how they do it and why you should buy their product and all that. And then 5 minutes later, they're like, man, I hate my job. I'm looking for something new. And it's like, what the? Why do you want me to buy from you?
Yeah.
You don't believe in you enough that I want to buy from you. So I love this since we're talking about conviction. Either believe what you believe in, and look, I tell people this about YouTube, told you this. If you can't talk about what you want to talk about every day the rest of your life with passion, find something else to do.
Boom.
That's great.
You know how many times I've had to stop myself from mentioning something Roman Empire related here? I had something.
Oh, no, we already know. Trust me.
Well, I think when you look at it, too, it goes back to looking at how useful are the habits and routines and things that you've brought into your life for you. And if they don't have use to you, get rid of them. Because I think far too often, people will pick up the latest routine because everybody else is doing it, or they want to seek approval for others. And you have to think about, oftentimes, you're doing something for the viewpoint of another or for the approval of another, not because you want to do it. And that's actually not your own free will then. You're doing it because of someone else. And you have to ask yourself, if you're doing something for someone else's approval, why would you live your life for someone else that's likely not going to die for you? And that's something you have to consider in every single action you take in your day.
That's a good one. You know, like the fads, like going on to that, the ice baths and all these trendy things. 6 months ago, you saw everybody talking about their ice baths. I haven't seen anyone mention it since then.
I did them. They weren't useful for me.
Well, the thing about this is that I know 0 people that became successful because they were doing ice baths. Most people become successful, and then they become eccentric and start doing weird shit.
I personally want to take a hot goat and give it an ice bath in the morning. That's what I want to just try for the next.
You probably already have.
A hot, cold.
No goats
goat
were harmed
yoga
in this
bath.
recording of this. No goats were harmed in the recording of this podcast.
None.
David, final words.
Oh God. Well, yeah, I would just say conviction, passion, be willing to disrupt. I'm a firm believer in disruption because I think that we live in a culture today that there's a lot of Me Too, echo chamber redundancy. And so I'm always like, when people are saying why, I'm the first one to go, why not? What can we explore? And I think that opens a lot of doors. And I think that we're at a time in this culture when a lot of doors need to be opened.
Hey, David, you know that Tony backwards is why not? And I've known that ever since I was a kid.
I love that. That's cool.
Mike, any final words?
I would say no matter where you're at, have fun, document the journey, and never say die.
Yeah, I would say final words for people that want to become more successful and life missions and things that we've all been talking about today. You've got to become disciplined. You got to be surrounding yourself. I'll do a summary. You got to be surrounding yourself with people that have good habits, good discipline, that support you, that aren't breaking you down. And don't be afraid to invest. If you don't have money, you better be investing a lot of time. And when you start to get money, you better be willing to get off of that money to make things expedite and accelerate a lot faster by hiring experts who have proven results, pushing you, holding you accountable, making you do those things that you're procrastinating and uncomfortable doing because they're not good skill sets that you have. The biggest change you're always going to have is to develop the skills and the talents that you don't really necessarily show right now. And kind of goes back to the summary is you don't admire qualities in other people unless you have those within yourself. So it becomes it's depending on you to go extract those and showcase to the world. And it's not easy to do. But yeah, it's been a great episode. I think we've got some good tips in here. And
Yeah.
Thank you for spending some time with us, and share this with your friends that people are going to get a good message out of this. If you gave us any good things, takeaways from this, let us know in the comments. Drop some comments wherever you're listening to this or watching this, and we'd love to hear some feedback from you, or the criticism. We love that too.
Leave us a review. Let us know what you think.
Like, for example, if you have opinions about Android users, we'd love to hear them.
Mike
Join
doesn't
my
want to hear
team.
that.
Good stuff, guys.